10 years
How are
now.
you today?
I'm
10
doing well,
years,
thank you.
wow. Okay, well, I have a couple questions for you today. We have about 12 questions. Couple of them are two-parters, so I'll let you know when that comes. So we're gonna start off with some easy questions to kind of ease you into this and get the conversation flowing. So first question, what is your morning routine?
My morning routine recently changed because we adopted a rescue puppy. It get up in the morning, let the dog out, give him breakfast. Every morning when I'm not traveling, I make my wife's lunch, pack her breakfast and lunch, get my stuff together. And then after all that's done, my wife is generally out of the shower and I get to go up and do my typical routine. Once everybody's ready to go, I head into the office, usually drop the dog at daycare, and then come into the office, grab a cup of coffee, start up the computer, and then just dive right in. Some days it's going right into design, some days it's dealing with emails, going straight into meetings. It varies a lot, which I enjoy.
Good. Yeah. I know you and I are two that kind of beeline it to that coffee machine in the morning.
It
um,
is.
I didn't know you rescued a new dog. What kind of dog?
He's a Doberman. His name's Murphy. We got him. He was about 35 pounds, and we just were at the vet last week, and he's up to 55 already. So he's about
Wow, good for
6 or
him.
7 months old. Yeah, he's fun.
Oh, wow, that's lovely. What is your favorite drink in the Ricca fridge?
That also depends. During the day, it's definitely the unsweet iced tea. I'm an iced tea
Mm,
lover, and I'm also type 1 diabetic, so I try to stay away from all the sugars. Not a huge fan of soda to begin with, but yeah, it's definitely my go-to in the day. And then every once in a while, when we have happy hour, I typically will go for one of the beers, either an IPA or a blonde.
mm. Yeah, I tried. We had our Ricca happy hour list past Tuesday. I tried one of the Breckenridge IPAs, and it was quite nice.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
new to
good
the
stuff.
IPA space, but my third question is, what did your first year at Ricca look and feel like? And this is a two-parter. So, what did your first year at Ricca look and feel like? And what do you hope your last year at Ricca will look like?
Sure. So my first year, I'd been in the food service design industry for 10 years with one of our competitors down the street. It took me a couple weeks to kind of get used to stuff. When I first came into the office, our systems were a little bit different. The type of projects, just even some of the software we use, like auto quotes, was a different version, and so I wasn't comfortable with that. And so it was a little nerve wracking the first couple weeks, but I basically fell into a groove and figured out, oh, this is exactly what I was doing, just with different people and different software and all that. And so I really, felt like I got hit the ground running after 2 3 weeks, and started, since I became or started as a director, was working with a team.
Mm.
So trying to coalesce all those folks, taking over projects that were already in design or in construction, so having to learn a lot of the background and history on them was a challenge. I remember too. I think I was here maybe 10 days, and Tom Ricca came up and said, "Hey, we have this interview in California that we'd like you to go to." And I was like, "I'm happy to. I haven't really interviewed much in the past, but happy to do it." And it was a really fun and exciting process. It was a very engaged team. It was a design build project, so we were paired with a contractor, an architect, and so we all hopped into a room and talked about design ideas, talked about interview strategies, did a lot of practice sessions and all that. And luckily, we won that project and actually led to a second project on the same campus, so with the same team. So I definitely count that as a win, and definitely made some long-term partners in design, which I really enjoy. Um, and yeah, so first year was really good. Learned a lot, grew a lot, and definitely found my voice too. I really appreciated the fact that Ricca really encourages folks to speak up, share ideas, to uh, be collaborative and question anything that's going on. It's a very open environment, and so I really embraced that, and was never shy about sharing my thoughts or comments on how I think things should be. And so I think it's served me very well in the past 10 years. As far as my last year, I'm still quite a ways from that, but I certainly envision myself doing more of a teaching sort of mentorship role in that. Um, I really enjoy teaching folks, growing younger staff, sharing what I've learned with others. And so I'd really like to make that kind of a legacy that I leave behind eventually. I'd also like to travel a lot too. So, I assume like ramping down slowly, working, 3 or 4 days a week instead of, 5 or 6 in my last few years.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite parts of about Ricca thus far as well is being able to speak your mind. I think I or there was a situation yesterday where I felt strongly about an opinion, and people are open to hearing your thoughts if you feel strongly about something, which is such a great feeling and environment to be a part of.
That's great. Yeah, I love it.
So now to our fourth question. Now we all know that one of your favorite projects that you've done is Madison Square Garden. Can you tell me a little bit about the hole in the floor there?
Yeah, it's probably, I guess it's probably safe to share that story now. I, worked on Madison Square Garden for about 5 years. They never shut down hockey or basketball during the year, so most of their construction was phased during the off season, so a very limited construction window. I was traveling back and forth to New York basically every week during construction from Denver, and it was very challenging for sure. And I, been on many construction sites, knew what I was doing, but I hadn't officially taken their safety training class, and so technically I probably wasn't supposed to be led on site without having done that. But we were doing, some normal walkthroughs. We were looking at one of their large beer coolers, and trying to figure out how to get beverage lines from one location to another. And it was,
Mm.
deep in the bowels of the building. There was a lot of infrastructure around there, and so there was a shaft next to it, and the shaft had a floor for most of it, and so I was walking in there trying to figure out, if we could penetrate it, if there's anything that was obstructing going directly through there, and it was covered. Not all of it was covered, but there was a large portion of it covered in cardboard, and since the rest was concrete, I assumed that was just something that trash that had been left there, and unfortunately, it was covering up a hole in the floor, and so I kind of fell through there about halfway down to my waist, and got a very large bruise. Luckily, no lasting injuries or anything. But yeah, within minutes, there was a safety officer there, and they're putting up the proper barricades and warnings and all that. But yeah, luckily it wasn't real bad, because if you don't know, Madison Square Garden is on top of Penn Station, so I
Mm.
don't think it was directly below there, but there easily could have been a train coming below, for all I know.
Yeah, could have fallen just right into the middle of the square. That's
Exactly.
great. I don't think that was your fault at all. I think that was just a little.
I
I think
agree,
there should have
but
been something there that stopped you from that.
yeah. So, needless to say, I went home and did the online OSHA training that weekend, and made sure I was properly certified to be on site.
Yeah, that'll put you in your place pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for telling that story a little bit. In what ways has your culinary background shaped your work today?
So I think it served me very well. For me, I approach things, from a chef's perspective, and that includes not just, how to make something properly and efficiently, but also food safety, but also knowing that folks eat with their eyes. So making sure that things are attractive, presented attractively, but also the environment is very inviting and attractive. So, for me, since I've started, I've always talked to chefs like a chef and know all the sort of culinary terms, although there's 10 different terms for a lot of different things in the kitchen. And then it's really served me well, and so I really, uh, focus on the how space functions, but then also understanding the aesthetics needs of it too, and trying to balance those two. If other folks certainly we have a very diverse background here at Ricca, and so other folks come from the architectural, interior design spaces, may have a different perspective on things, and then they need to learn the operational side. So I think that, when you pair those two together, it marries so well to get a really functional and beautiful space at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I've
I mean,
also
having
won
a,
the, sorry,
go ahead, go ahead.
I'd say I've also won the chili cook-off a couple times too, so it served me well in that fashion as well.
Yeah, that's a little perk there, some
Yeah.
bragging rights. But yeah, that's I think being newer to Ricca and seeing all the diversity and backgrounds and stuff like that, I think it adds so much of a perspective that maybe some other studios might not have. I mean, you having that like aesthetic background, but not in interior design might suit the team differently, and somebody that might have that interior design will bring something else to the table.
Yeah, like I said, those marry up so well, and it's so interesting to hear people's backgrounds, where they came from, and how they got into the industry. Because as we've seen and heard a lot, there's just nowhere that teaches what we do. I know
Mm.
FCSI is working on something educational with a university, but no one. When I went to culinary school, knew this was a career. The only way I found out was that one of our former partners, Dave Chislett, who's now retired, was an adjunct instructor at my culinary school, and so he taught a food service facility design class that I took, and that's how I got to know Dave and get hired in the industry and all that. So um, it's really interesting how different people have come to be in the food service design space.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible that we're here and it's not even something that you can learn in school. And I think that leads us nicely into the next question, which is two-parter again. Uh, why Ricca and what does creating what's next mean to you?
So, Ricca has such a long history and reputation in the industry. I mean, I feel like it's parallel to none. Um, when I decided to leave my last firm, well, actually, let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
When I was leaving culinary, or graduating from culinary school, I, had pretty well decided that I wanted to work in the design industry. I really enjoyed it and did a little bit of design while I was in school for a culinary program. So I reached out to multiple firms, including Ricca, and I didn't get a call back. So I always remind people of that.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah. But once I was in the industry, got to know people. I had reached out to Dave again because he was at my previous firm as well. Had come to Ricca a number of years ago, and then we'd seen each other many times over the years. And so I reached out to him and just asked if there was any opportunities. And so, he got me in touch with Lenny and Kathy, and interviewed with a lot of folks. And really, for me, the culture was a big deal. Staying in Denver was a big deal to my wife and my daughter as well, because I had other opportunities outside of Denver. And since I've been here, I just, really love the culture, the opportunities, the room for growth too. The fact that we are, privately held company that, offers opportunities for ownership was a big deal for me. And I think the talent and um, all the designers we have here are just, like I said, second to none. And so I've been able to learn and grow from them, and certainly been able to advance my career a lot because of all the people around me. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all the folks in the leadership and mentorship I've received up till now.
Oh yeah.
Um, the second half of the question was what? Sorry.
What does creating what's next mean to
Got
you?
it. So creating what's next, I've thought long and hard about this, and I really feel that the difference between a good consultant and a great consultant is pushing back. Not just asking
Mm.
a client what do you need or what do you want. Like anybody could do that. You don't need probably a consultant to do that for you. It's really uh, the ability, the courage, and the experience to push back and say, hey, there's a better way to do this.
Mm.
And a lot of the folks we deal with, may not design something every day. They may have had the same, let's say, dining hall for 20 years. And so they know what they do. They may do it very, very well. but it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it or the best way to do it or the most modern way to do it. So I think that we really provide value by bringing those thoughts, those ideas, innovation, new technologies into the space to really help not only the chef and the cooks and the folks in the back house, but also the customer experience. And so I think, we try to bring that all together into a really great experience. Um, and so, one of my pet peeves is calling something a cafeteria, because I just think that's such a horrible vision in my mind. So like, I think the fact that we really look at everything as a restaurant, and that
Yeah.
restaurant experience can be different things, and it should be different things based on what your expectations are, what the price point is, what the style of service is. But at the end of the day, it's still all hospitality in my mind. And so we're
Mm.
creating experiences that are meant to be shared and enjoyable and hospitable, to the guest and the customer. And so I've always kept that, sort of probably back to my culinary days.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that why Ricca and it also leans into like that creating what's next is internally we're able to challenge each other and be honest, which I don't think without that, I don't think our evolution and our kind of pushing the boundaries would be there internally. And I mean, that's even the same externally, being able to say, like, hey, we are the experts on this. And like, we believe we can push the boundary here, here, and here. And that honesty and that honestly is why I like my why Ricca is that communication and that honesty and that like wanting to do better and do what's next. And I think those two tie in together perfectly.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's something to be said for healthy competition.
Yeah,
There's nothing
that
wrong
too.
with that. It all helps us to be better. I love when we do internal design competitions, or, our create a safe space where we can critique each other's designs. I think that's extremely healthy. Not, it's hard. I know a lot of folks that, really are not necessarily here, but in other facets of our business are very ego driven. And so
Mhm.
um, making sure that you can give constructive, healthy criticism to other folks to make each other better, is really critical to making us better and growing what is next.
Yeah. I mean, that really is being able to kind of serve tough news or a tougher pushback, serving it smoothly is definitely a skill within itself.
Oh yeah,
Um,
the people skills, or we call them soft skills here, it's really hard to teach. We
yeah.
definitely have internal exercises, activities, workshops, whatever you want to call it, to help hone those skills. But for me, if you can see somebody, you're like, they've got it or they don't have it, and to get someone from not having it to getting it is really, really tough.
Yeah. I completely agree. As someone who didn't have it once upon a time. um, so my next question is a little bit of a fun one. Can you tell me a little bit about how you felt getting that speeding ticket driving through Nebraska?
Um, I just, I
Tell me a
guess,
little bit about that story.
pissed
Yeah.
off. Yeah, if I recall correctly, I was with Garrett Sledden, our
Yep.
newest principal, actually.
Yeah.
We were going, I believe, to a hospital project out in the middle of nowhere. And so, we were trying to make good time, and, just out in the middle of nowhere, probably on a state road with, I don't even know what the speed limit was, but, doing not, in my opinion, something unsafe, but certainly we're going over the speed limit, and just, getting angry at myself and annoyed for letting it happen, and obviously getting caught, I guess. I really wish that Lenny was with me, Lenny Condenzio, our CEO, because I recall being in Georgia with him and flying into a meeting. Our flight was delayed and we were late, so we're trying to catch up and make sure we made it on time. And he was going very fast. We got pulled over, and he's just such a charming person.
Mm.
I can't imagine how many speeding tickets he's talked himself out of, but we rolled away from there with a warning, and I was just amazed. I guess That's a soft skill that I need, is to be more charming to get out of tickets and stuff.
Yeah, luckily, I mean, knock on wood, I haven't been pulled over, but I would like to think I got the charm to get myself out of it. I'll let you know one day when I do, though.
Yeah, it's a skill for sure.
Great, thank you for that. That's a great story. Um, and this is a little bit more about those interpersonal relationships within Ricca itself. But who do you typically, and this is a two-parter again, who do you typically look for feedback or ideas when you're stuck on a project? And then how do you know at what point do you know you need to ask for help?
Sure. So it really depends on the situation. Again, with all of our diverse backgrounds, certain people are stronger in different market segments or different types of projects, different stages of projects in particular. So I'll give probably two examples here. If there's anything to do with construction, even a lot of times in documentation, Jim DiTrapini is my go-to. I mean,
Oh, really?
he's been in the food service industry for much, much longer than I have. He, started out as a kitchen equipment contractor, so he has so much field knowledge that he brought into the design world that I just really value his opinion in all things construction and documentation, because our documentation tells ideally, and I think does a good job of telling people what to do in the field and how to do it. So if there's ever something that comes up, almost any construction situation, he's probably seen it, and so he's my immediate go-to for that.
Oh, wow.
And then on the design side, it varies between a lot of folks, based on their specialty or expertise. And then just for everyday client relationships or interpersonal relationships, I've come very close to Tara Schroeder, our vice president, one of the other senior partners here, and so we lovingly say that we're each other's sounding board. So if we're ever
Mm.
frustrated and just need somebody to talk to, she's my immediate go-to, and so I feel like we can vent and laugh, cry, yell, whatever we need to, and at the end of the day, we know we'll still be good friends and good business partners. And so yeah, so I rely on her a lot.
I mean, that's a lovely relationship to have. I feel like you rarely see that. I mean, even within friends, let alone coworkers. And that's also interesting that I didn't even think about people being specified or have like a special interest in the certain phases of design, even.
Yeah.
I've always thought about it as like, oh, Phil has a culinary background. He's going to have that aesthetic charm or twinge to his work. But yeah, being really strong in construction design, I mean, that's something I've never thought about before. It's great
Yeah.
insight.
Well, and then we also,
Um,
have market leads too. So, I'm the public
yeah.
assembly market lead, so things to do with stadiums, arenas, convention centers. I just have a lot of experience in that. I feel like I'm extremely well-rounded based on all the project history that I have. We have other folks that are leading healthcare and higher education and all those. So,
Yep.
they're meant to be resources, but I think unlike the architectural world, we really value, and I shouldn't say that architects don't value it, but the architectural world tends to be very specialized. But
Yeah.
for us, we really appreciate and embrace the diversification, because bringing ideas and technologies, innovation from one market sector, can easily and drastically help out other market sectors. So that diversification I really enjoy, and honestly, I love, because I don't want to be pigeonholed into a certain type of project. I
Yeah.
love, working on different types of projects and working with different types of people as well. So I really, really value that in our firm.
And so as you were saying earlier a little bit, you started as a director here at Ricca over 10 years ago, and since then you've worked your way up to executive principal and even Ricca stakeholder, which relations, by the way. What are two pieces of advice you would give to a blossoming young food service design consultant?
Sure. Um, I feel like I've been asked this a lot of times, and my answer is always to be brave and ask questions.
Mm,
You know, People preach, there are no dumb questions, and I really believe that. That's the only way we can learn. And not asking a question can be so much more dangerous than asking it. Not asking the question and either giving the wrong answer or documenting something incorrectly is costly. It's takes up a lot of time and effort and resources to correct it. Just be vulnerable and
Mm.
know that you don't know everything and that you need the resources and the experiences of those before you, and you'll learn so much. And honestly, like I said, I think all of our leadership loves teaching younger folks. And so when folks ask a
Yeah.
question, I mean, we just geek out on it. I mean, we
Yeah.
love providing input or sharing experiences and all that. And so it's very much, or usually probably the best time of my day is when I get to sit down and talk to somebody about something that they didn't know.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody says there are no dumb questions, but there are no dumb questions until you feel dumb asking a question. So I think how you receive those questions is so important. And I've seen, I mean, pretty much everyone here, like discussing and like when there is a question brought, I think people receive it really well here, which is really impressive. Nobody's doesn't have the time to talk or anything like that. It's really lovely seeing and observing it throughout the studios here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and we've done so many leadership and um, mentorship sort of exercises. The five dysfunctions of a team is something that we really embrace, and I think preach and act out too. Having healthy discussions
Mm,
and questioning, and it all from a base of trust, because we want to have a collaborative focus on growing our business and doing the best projects we possibly can. So that's the only way we're going to get to a collective goal. And so
yeah.
every time we get together as a group, whether it's a town hall or our get-togethers, twice a year, I always challenge people to put it to the test. I've in the 10 years I've been
Yeah.
here, I've never seen anybody reprimanded or get let go or anything for asking a question or challenging, a decision of leadership or anything like that. Like there's reasons and explanations behind everything that we do, and
Yep.
we share as much as we can. Some things obviously have to remain confidential, but we try to be extremely transparent. And I can say, in my previous work history, a lot of anywhere I've worked, I've never seen a more transparent firm.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, I mean, having these conversations and having these discussions with you, and I mean, hopefully we're going to go through the EPs and the principals and maybe even get some answers from the associates at some point. But having this platform to kind of communicate how we work at Ricca and how yeah, how we communicate externally as well as internally, I think maybe somebody who doesn't even know what food service design is will come across this, and maybe you'll spark some new consultants down the line.
Well, you probably
Um,
haven't been with us long enough, but Tom Ricca had always said, and I have taken this to heart, probably one of the most impactful things, and I try to use it in every interview that I do too, is that yes, we're
mhm,
in the food service business, but really we're in the communication business. And,
oh,
it's our
very much
job to
so.
be great listeners, translate that into great designs. Our documentation needs to be able to communicate things back to the owner, to the operator, to the architect, to the plumber, electrical engineer, et cetera, et cetera. Like all those are communication tools. And so, um, and honestly, almost every problem I've come across is just a lack of communication or poor
Mm.
communication. So anything we can do to improve that is positive in my mind. So when he said that, and he said it so many times, that it really has struck me, and I've embraced it as much as I can, I think.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how much I've learned already from being here in terms of my own communication styles. Okay, sorry about that. We had a scenery because of some Wi-Fi problems, but we're back. And I just want to ask that question again and make sure we get that full answer from you because I only heard about the beginning of it.
Okay.
But what has been your most challenging project and why?
So I thought about this a lot, and I really have to probably go back to Madison Square Garden. Just going back to the beginning of the project, a lot of people don't know this, but originally the building was going to move into a much larger space, and so
Yeah.
we had a huge commissary kitchen, loading dock with a probably
Wow.
10 truck docking stations. The concessions were bigger, and had more opportunities for live cooking. The clubs were huge, and eventually that all kind of fell apart. And so it turned into a renovation of the existing building. And so when we had to scale everything back and we now had a confined space to work with, it just created a lot of downtrodden from the culinary team, just not getting what they were expecting and what they had really hoped for in their hopes and dreams. So we certainly did our best to maximize every square inch and give them everything we could. But there were definitely sacrifices that had to be made. And then, of course, personally, like I said, the timeline of the project was, probably 3 years in design and another 3 years in
Wow.
construction. The travel back and forth. My daughter was a lot younger at the time, so having to lean on my wife to really take care of her, a lot during that
Yeah.
on her own, was very challenging. But in the end of the day, I look at it as a positive. Like, there's hardly, a construction situation I didn't run into on that project because it's such an old building. It's been
Wow.
renovated so many times. I mean, I can't tell you how many times they opened a wall and found a ton of structure in there that was not on any drawings and no one ever knew was there, and we had to redesign and
Jeez.
figure stuff out. So it really was extremely valuable, but yeah, probably the most difficult and challenging projects I've ever had.
Well, thank you, Phil. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for being so candid with your stories and letting me slip a couple funny memories in there. I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope you have a great day.
Well, thank you, and I need to know your sources because yeah.
My sources may never be revealed. We'll see.
Okay, we can chat about that later.
Yep. Okay. Have a great day.
You too, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.